Hello, and welcome to another episode of Almost in Agreement. Sam and I are in here, we're chilling out. Max and AC may or may not show up in the near future. AC is totally distracted with his child and or the Braves baseball. I'm not sure which one's more important. But that's what's going on with them. We're Almost in Agreement. Get us at almostinagreement@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. Almostinagreement.com/cityelections21 has our city election cheat sheet. Today was the last Saturday of early voting. There's a couple more days. I think it runs till Thursday this week. And then it cuts off until actual election day on Tuesday, the 2nd of November. So if you haven't voted yet and you're eligible to vote, go to cityelections21, almostinagreement.com/cityelections21 for a little bit more information. And don't forget, you get to vote for all 5 districts because city elections are dumb. So that's what's going on with those kind of things. We got Ron McPherson in on Wednesday. We're going to talk money in schools. Other than that, I don't have anything scheduled currently. Hunting season's in full swing. We got a bunch of shit going on personally with that, so that may interfere with some episodes. If it does, it does. So anyway, here we go. It's me and Sam, everybody. So right before we started, you asked a question. I thought it was a valid question to ask.
Oh yeah,
that's why I cut you off like mid-sentence so that I could start the intro.
No, I was just curious. I mean, you always see the auxiliaries of part of the team, the defensive coordinators and water people and whatnot. I didn't know if they're actually required to wear their full regalia of school colors.
I don't know if it's and as I said earlier, I don't know if it's a requirement as much as it is
expectation.
You know, I don't even know if it's expectation. I think it's just like you go into the locker room or you go into your little whatever your green room is or whatever it is. And there's probably a whole bunch of crap there. Like it's probably maybe not a whole bunch of crap there, but I'd say like throughout the week and stuff like that, there's stuff. Whether Nike's just made some new design, like hey guys, check it out or whatever. But I think you're probably right. It probably is required. Like they're probably required at least to have like Nike branded stuff. It's got to be.
That's true, yeah. Especially people that are going to be on the camera. They
right.
got to be wearing something that supports it.
I mean, fucking Belichick gets like custom sweatshirts and stuff with the sleeves cut off by Reebok or whoever does New England's gear because it has to be officially licensable product on the sideline. I miss the days of like the suit wearing coaches. I thought that was cool. But anyway, Alabama's not destroying Tennessee yet.
Not
Surprise. Yet. But we were discussing the pregame that Penn State, what did we say it was? Penn State and
2018.
Illinois was a 20-18 final in 9 overtimes. Maybe they're counting it as each team's turn as an overtime. I would have. I don't know. I just don't like it's. The box score on ESPN looks weird. It's really hard to follow for those of you who want to look at it.
Is it first one to score or is it?
No, it's each team gets a turn, as long as, doesn't matter what happens. If the first team doesn't score, does score, scores a field goal or a touchdown, whatever happens on the first possession, the other team gets a chance to match it. And then if both teams have an equal outcome from that overtime, they switch who gets to go first and do it again. And then, like I said, I can't remember if it's like I think it's the third overtime. If you score a touchdown, you have to go for 2. You can't kick extra points anymore.
Yeah.
But then after that, it's just, you just keep going, doing it over and over and over again. But the box score reads as 9, and I'm really confused on it when I read it on the ESPN, like breakdown of scoring and stuff like that.
Who's UTSA that's ranked?
Texas San Antonio.
Hey, Wisconsin won.
That's a lot of points for Wisconsin. That's a whole lot of points for Wisconsin.
Beat the
30.
Boilermakers.
Yeah, Purdue's pretty good.
They were in years past. I don't know about now.
My sister-in-law went to Purdue. It's Indiana, right? Mm-hmm. It's either Indiana or Illinois. I was getting backed up.
Ooh, the El Clasico's tomorrow.
What is the El Clasico?
Barcelona versus Real Madrid.
Oh, so the big Spanish teams.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I guess they've always been rivals for years. They call, I think it's just about any meeting during like the regular season. Or I don't know if it's always just scheduled just one game throughout the year.
Is it like a neutral site game or something weird where it's like...
I think they go back and forth, and I guess occasionally in tense times they may have a neutral site.
Interesting. So, for the record, I owe you $5.
Yeah.
Tennessee did not get into the 60-point range, nor did they get into the 80-point range, and they sure as shit didn't get into the 100+ that I was betting on.
I don't know if there was a Vegas line on that.
On what?
Can you make up your own stuff? You're like, well, I think it's because the over-under was 80 or whatever.
Yeah, they'll give you stuff.
I think it'll be.
If you go to like a real book, they'll give you some crazy shit. But yeah, but I mean, when it comes down to like completely off, like, because it's like, I don't know, like I took the Capitals in hockey 2 nights ago at a -2.5, which is really weird for hockey. Hockey's almost always a 1.5 point game. It's always a 1.5. But then you get odds against the 1.5. So like if you took like Predators, who the Preds play losing to tonight, they're losing right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Rangers?
Maybe. Anyway, let's just, for conversation's sake, let's say the Predators are a 1.5 point favorite. But they're going to
playing the Jets.
Winnipeg? Okay. So, but the Preds are a 1.5 point favorite, right? And that's what Vegas gives it. But it's, instead of being a -110 like a football game usually is at the same line, it's going to be like a +175. Because hockey, a 2-point wins, significant. You know.
Well, I mean, when you throw in like an empty net in there,
that's true.
Because they lost their last one. It was a tight game, and I think the other team scored in the last like 15 seconds to make it a 3-1 game. Yeah.
Right. But I'm just saying, like that. But that's how hockey tends to be. It's always a 1.5 point game. But you're usually, if it's not a team that's really, really favored to win, you're getting plus odds to take the favorite, which is a weird thing against normal things. So I ended up, I moved the line on a Capitals game and made it -2.5. That made it like +240. So I put 10 on it and got paid 24 because they won 4-1 because they beat the 2.5, which is cool. Didn't expect that to happen. I was just kind of fucking around. I usually don't bet hockey because it's hard. Hockey is hard to bet.
Yeah,
because it's a lot like basketball and baseball where there's so many goddamn games that, you know, just off nights aren't that big a deal in hockey like they are in a football game. Like you can generally speaking, football is more predictable in that sense. And that's why the lines in football tend to be better. Where the lines football or soccer is the same. Soccer is very, very much you're picking winners. There's a lot, like most football game, most soccer games, you can bet the draw and get pretty good odds. And so it's like, you know, I bet nobody wins, and you can get paid.
I bet for a no winner.
Yeah, you can bet for a no score or a no win, and it's pretty like, I don't know if I've never looked to see if they have an over under on soccer games. I'd say they don't, because like 2-3 goals in a soccer game is pretty big, pretty astronomically high scoring game considering normal soccer. Every once in a while you get weird 5-2s or some shit like that, but Ted Lasso's over. I'm sad. Speaking of soccer, season 2 wrapped
Season's
up.
over.
Yeah. It's the funniest show on television.
That's what I've heard. I've seen little bits and pieces.
It's pretty damn good. It just is just plain damn good.
I've heard it's like a good comedy, but it's also a good kind of
We just blocked a punt.
meaningful drama.
Anyway, sorry about that.
Our teams are excited about something.
Yeah.
Get off the field. Get off the field. Too many people
Yeah,
on
I
the
think
field.
they just blocked a punt. Uh-oh, Bama fans are doing the Cobra stance. All right, AC needs to get here because if Tennessee wins this game, we have to have cigars. Apparently that's the thing with the Alabama game. Yeah, block punt. Nice. Anyway, I'm sorry. I know you guys
It's like, where's the
listening.
ball? Where's the ball?
If you care about it, you've already seen it. So I sent that message, sent that text to the group making fun of whoever this outside people that are texting me. I don't know how I got on their calling list. I'm sure I do. It's probably Randy Pace. But I've been getting texts about the city elections, which, you know, shame on them. I don't know. Because I made a joke with Matt Shears about it. He's like, yeah, when we do stuff, you'll get it too. Even if it's like, we don't do city stuff, air quotes.
Right.
So you won't get any city stuff from us, but you know, you'll get stuff from us just because we have you listed as media, so we'll send it to you anyway, even if you're not eligible to vote in a certain thing.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, because that was my joke to him. I was like, I don't know why they're sending it to me anyway. I'm county. Well, I guess I do know why, because they want me to talk about it on air, and so I do. And so there's been I don't know. I still can't wrap my mind around how I don't know. Maybe this is so uniquely new to this race. In the way it's going, that this is normal for me because I don't know any better, because I've never seen it before, because I never paid that much attention before. But it doesn't seem like there's been an ounce of nonpartisanship in any of this from the start. It doesn't seem like there was an ounce of, and people talking about prior whatever's not standard partisanship, at least in the sense of, Republican, Democrat, but there was definitely the city council movement, which in all intents and purposes is a party that was out there running as a party against incumbents and stuff like that in the last election. It seems to be that this is normal. The bigger one that I'm concerned about or curious about, maybe not concerned is the right word, is that, so the state had a special session last week. Did you follow that at all?
Heard they're calling another one.
Yeah. And apparently part of the other one is to move school board into officially being partisan races instead of being nonpartisan races, which I don't know. I don't have the history of how school board races were, and meeting all the school board people that I've met so far, I don't get a full, like I'm the party A thing, and I don't know if it's just they don't say it because that's not part of the game.
Right.
But, so I was doing some math on the current one is like $750 million. The state is putting up for this Ford plant in the Memphis. It's East Memphis somewhere. Ford's supposed to come down and build I don't know what they're building there, but they're going to put a big factory in and start building cars or trucks or something in Memphis, basically.
Right.
And the state of Tennessee kicked in $750 million for all sorts of random shit. And there's a couple of them that I actually have legitimate questions about. One of them is like a training center. And it's like, okay, we're just building the building, and then Ford's going to staff it with educators, and people can go and apply and be students there to learn how to do the job and then go get the job with Ford afterwards. Or is this something that, like, our secondary education state programs are going to kick into? Like, we're going to have, state-funded programs that go on in this school continuously. Like, is this going to be a continually budgeted item year in and year out that we're going to be paying for this school to continue to exist?
Is this an actual school, or is this a worker training facility?
I mean, I can't remember exactly what it was titled, but it was like a factory education facility or something like that. A bunch of infrastructure stuff, which makes sense. They got to have the ability to get cars in and out of there and all the materials in and out of there and access to the interstate and whatever it is that they're near to get them to be a functional factory. But I was doing math on it, and I think quick math, I figured out the main question is how quickly will this plant produce, I want to say when I figured it out, like $15 billion. How quickly will they produce $15 billion in payroll? Because that's all that matters to the state, in my opinion, monetarily at least. Because $15 billion in payroll, in take-home payroll, I guess is, so like 18 million, maybe 20 billion, in payroll. $15 billion in take-home payroll should directly produce over $1 billion in sales tax revenue, because you're going to assume that most people spend most of their money that they make buying stuff because they live here and stuff like that.
Right.
And so that's the question to me, is how quickly will that plant employ enough people to generate $15 billion in payroll? And I don't know. I don't know how many people they're supposed to be going in there. I don't know how much people that work in those types of places get paid, but I'd say it's going to take a little while to get to $15 billion in payroll.
They haven't thrown out a number of estimated employees.
I think they have. I just haven't seen it attached to. Well, I wanted to say that Ford was coming in with like $5 billion in investments in the facility and in the machinery and in all the stuff that they're putting in. And then the other one too is that if you want to talk about it as how does this benefit us as Tennesseans kind of thing, it's like how many people is Ford going to bring with them? How many executives and trainers and whatever are they going to move in from Detroit or other facilities to come operate this one? Because every new person that all their salary goes into should go into our economy locally, state-wise at least, and that kind of stuff. So I don't know.
Is this special session just to renegotiate the deal or to tweak?
Yeah, the special session they just came out of.
Is there a deal in place?
Yeah, that was them approving, saying yes to all the little provisions and stuff. So as far as I understand it, it is now a done deal. I don't know when the groundbreaking and all that stuff's supposed to take place, but and again, I don't know. I haven't heard anybody particularly complaining about it, specifically the same ilk of people that are complaining about the stadium and how we're spending, taxpayer financing the stadium and that kind of shit. And it's like, it's spread out over a bunch more people, but it's the same deal, right? I mean, it's a new lighting system. Have you not seen it yet?
No.
All right, so we have the game on in the background, and I remember last year we did a podcast. I remember specifically because Max went to the Alabama-Tennessee game in Alabama, and I remember specifically after that game there were a bunch of people on social media pitching a fit about, I want to go to a football game, not a disco, because they had this super cool lighting system that did a bunch of strobe effects and different stuff like that as part of the thing. And everybody said was how stupid it was. And I remember Max came back and was like, no, it was really cool. It was really fun to be there. It made it really exciting.
I don't remember that.
And then the conversation went on to how do you think it'll be next year or the year after when Tennessee gets theirs? And he's like, next year for sure. And so here we are.
Well, a local big lighting company came in and did something for the last game. But I don't know if that was just throwing in more orange lights or for a halftime show or something. But Bandit Lighting came in and did a bunch of stuff. I don't know if they kept it there or if this was just a temporary thing.
Yeah, I don't know. The crazy one is the circus is at Thompson right now.
Hey?
Shriners Circus.
Yeah.
They had a Friday night, 2 today, and 2 tomorrow. They have a 7:00 showing of the circus at Thompson right now.
I went there once to it.
I'm just saying, how on earth? Because we got free tickets from school to go to the 7:00 tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot of random free tickets that just kind of get given out for this.
But I'm just saying, how would you go to that? How would you possibly go to that and park and go and be a part of that and have anything to do with try to do anything at that event with the football game going on next door?
Football game's not next door.
Oh, it's in Alabama. Okay, I'm an idiot. Sorry.
Yeah.
Alabama's got a better version. Anyway, I'm sorry. This whole conversation was stupid. I apologize. We have the same lighting stuff in our stadium is my point, though.
Oh. That's the first time I've seen it.
But anyway,
I don't really watch it. Anyway.
The following the special they call the special session at the end of the last special session to talk about some mandate shit going on, as well as apparently adding partisanship to the school board races.
That doesn't make sense to me. Why do you want to add partisanship to it? Especially in the situation we're already in, where school boards are getting...
Well, because because the Republican Party's in power in the state, and they truly think that nonpartisan races are essentially just handing it to the Democrats. That's their thought process on how nonpartisan elections work. I mean, Randy and Daniel came in here and said it point blank. Nonpartisan elections are really just Democrat elections. And I use the word Democrat quoting them, not meaning it as a slight. And I don't get it. I mean...
So you didn't press them on it to explain themselves what they meant by it?
I could see at least in the local, the local visual of it, it seems like it's the truth. I mean... at least on the city races in general, everybody on the city is more left leaning. Everybody on city council is at least left leaning, if not hard left, politically, functionally, whatever you want to call it.
And that's
I don't know
solely because it's a nonpartisan race.
I mean that's a statistical number that I don't know the details on. I don't know who.
There couldn't be any other reason.
I'm not saying there could be or couldn't be. I'm just saying that's what I've been told, and that's how I'm operating on my logic. It could be that more right-leaning candidates.
Sounds like making excuses for losing.
I mean, I don't know how many more better right-leaning candidates that they've put up, and they just don't win.
So, in the reverse logic, the reason the county commission is more right-leaning is because they are partisan. That's the only reason.
I think that's a logical fallacy right there, but. Because if A is correct, then the opposite is correct too. That's not true.
It is sometimes.
Sometimes, but I'm just saying, I just use a logical fallacy in practice. I don't know what the name of that one is, but I'm trying to be smarter. At least sound smarter. But but I don't know.
So
again,
converse
fallacy. Sure.
Yeah.
How smart are we now? But I mean, I don't know. I get it. Like, at least the optics, as I see it, holds that true. Now, that doesn't mean it is true, because I don't know the history. You know, I think there are. I still, and I bitch about it all the time. Not that I have a voice in it, because I'm not a city resident. I think the way they do city elections is dumb. Like, I think it's really stupid. There's another one that I got into with the Knox Dems page this week. Is they had a post out. It's like, how bad is Jim Clanaris if he can't even win his own precinct? Not his own district, but his own precinct. So the actual neighborhood precinct that he votes in, he didn't even win that one in the primary. Which my reply was, how dumb is it that he still has a chance of winning even though he can't do shit in his own district? And then somebody that lives there was like, yeah, I think he's just like, I went and voted today, but I do think it sucks that other districts can influence who my rep will be for my district. And it's dumb. I mean, I've done the example 1,000 times. Let's say Kim Smith out here in District 2, for whatever reason, really resonates well with District 2 and gets District 2 out to vote in force for her. It's been very clearly illustrated who's closer to her and the other races. So anybody that's going out to vote for her is going to vote down as they've been instructed by her and her teams, or whatever you want to call it. And so all the other districts don't have a good turnout because it's a city race, and they never have a good turnout. One district turns out really well for one person, and that could influence all 5 districts in this race. And I think that's dumb. I don't know how. I think you do it by district. You just leave it as, you do a primary, you narrow it down, and then you do it again.
I wonder if part of it is because of low turnout. They don't want a race decided by 25 people or something. Yeah. They'd go and vote in a precinct.
I guess, but at least those are the 25 people that actually give a shit about their district, and they should have a person that represents them. I mean, again, it's like, like you're in one. Did you go early vote? Now that we figured out. Yeah, that was last week. Thank you, Jennifer Owen, for helping us find that.
Thank you.
That link to check Sam's registration so that he did figure out that he was registered and he can vote in the city race.
Well, to be honest, the link didn't help, but me calling the county election commission did.
Whatever, it spurred the conversation and figured it out.
It did. It did.
Yeah, because you're.
I was under the impression that I was like, I could have swore that I had heard that you had to re-register for this election.
Yeah,
which didn't quite make sense, but
as long as you're active, your registration doesn't expire. As long as you're active,
right? I need to call them anyway, so I could request a new
voter ID
card. Yeah.
But anyway, but you're in District 1. I'm not. I'm assuming I know who you vote for. You're going to vote for, but that's not important. Your district, your neighbors, your neighborhood, and everybody around you in District 1 votes overwhelmingly for Tommy Smith. And by city election standards, that's 1,200 people to, the 600 or so that Elizabeth Murphy gets. I'm speculating here. I don't know the truth because it hasn't happened yet. But let's say that's the reality, is it's 1,200 to 600 in district. But again, I'm going to use my Kim Smith as the example because that's District 2. It's close to me. Kim Smith gets 5,000, 7,000 people to come out and vote for her. And they vote down ticket to her friends. And so now all of a sudden, Elizabeth Murphy wins District 1 with only 600 votes from District 1, but 4,000 votes from the rest of the city. And now she's your rep. I think that's stupid.
I can't think of any other races that would equate to it, but I'm assuming there's method to madness. But
I mean, again, as I've been instructed on the history of it, it was intentionally to fuck with District 6 and to try to, because some of the civil rights stuff that happened, there has to be, I don't remember exactly how it works out, but basically there has to be a majority-minority district. That's part of what's going on in redistricting right now. Like, by law, if you
I saw they passed the first reading of it.
Yeah, they do it again next week, and it'll pass next week, probably as it's written.
So, I mean, they're going forward with
version 2, I think, Plan B.
There was something where they were mixing like East Knoxville in with Sequoia. Apparently, that was the one contentious part of redistricting. Yeah,
because it's injecting a bunch of white people into the black district, essentially. So it's diluting the black district is the argument, or is the argument against, at least. And that's a federal argument because that's federal discrimination law stuff that's in place.
So is that the reading that passed is with doing that?
I believe so. I'd have to double check it. I've honestly fallen off of keeping up with redistricting mostly since it doesn't. The redistricting committee doesn't give a shit about school board. School board is the one that's most affected by it. Everything else is going to come out in the wash, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll see. I guess the city redistricts too. I don't know when they do theirs.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You would think it would be off cycles somewhere.
I mean, I think I think it would have to be. I think it is legally due by like mid-January. Like it has to be done by mid-January or something like that by law. And so maybe the city does it after, since they have elections on those years.
All right, we just said the census is your most quote unquote most accurate data.
Right, and so the census is on the 0 year. City has an election on the 1 year, and so they wait till the end of the 1 year to do their redistricting, just so they can let the election through before so they don't try to redistrict in the middle of an election cycle.
Right.
I guess. I don't know. I'll have to ask somebody about that, because I haven't heard any conversation about it. And really, like I said, all I've heard of any real contention is the race issue with District 2 in county, and the school board, the number of school board members who don't like most of the plans for what they're doing in the county redistricting. And again, because the redistricting committee doesn't seem to care what the school board wants in it, and they're likely the most affected by it. But I haven't gotten Kyle on here to talk to me about it and tell me why this plan is the plan they want to go with. So,
sure, somebody will.
Yeah, I'll get Chris Davis in here. He loves coming in, so I'll get Chris Davis in here to talk about it. He's on the commission as the election commissioner administrator. He's on the redistricting commission, and so because I tried to get him and Kyle to come together, and he's like, we can't, because then it becomes a sunshine thing because we're on that committee together.
Yeah, that's true.
So, but yeah, I got Ron coming in this week, and I'm just gonna
just tell him to get enough people on to where it's not breaking sunshine law. We'll bring a friend that's on the committee too. Just have the whole committee here.
Yeah, make it a committee meeting, but then it still has to be open to the public, and I'm not letting the public in my studio.
Oh, it's on live on Facebook or live on YouTube.
Hey, if Law Director Buck would not be a douche and come on the show and help me understand it, then maybe we'd do that. Yeah. But he's a douche and won't come on the show. I don't know how.
Politics.
I don't know how in my brain that I got cocky enough to think that I could call people out and be an asshole, and somehow I'd get my way.
Yeah.
But
we finally passed the 10 listener mark. You're getting
that's right. Getting a big head. Trying to sell sponsorships for $1 million an episode. It's the way it goes, man. Speaking of podcasts and stuff, you have Hulu?
No.
Only Murderers in the Building. It's Steve Martin.
I've heard it's pretty
Selena
good.
Gomez and Martin Short.
Yeah.
It's really good. Like it's like it makes fun of podcasts, but it's also really true to podcasts. Like it's a very good kind of parody of the murder mystery podcasts that are really popular. And it's really fun and ridiculous. Steve Martin's fantastic, as always. But
he did a tour not long ago.
Him and Steve Martin had like a stand-up kind of show they did together
about
too.
Steve Martin.
Or Martin Short, sorry.
Oh.
Who did you say did a tour a while ago?
Steve Martin.
His banjo band?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he came to I think he might have came to the
Yeah, I
Tennessee
think
Theater.
so. Yeah, I think he came here, yeah. There's a picture floating around for some reason on the interwebs right now of Steve Martin and Jerry Garcia at some banjo festival in California or something in the 70s or something like that.
That's cool.
It's like, to be hanging out in that room. I mean, I don't know.
Steve Martin looks almost the same for the past 30 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, he did go full white and then just stop.
Yeah.
So, but that's been a fun show to watch. We started watching Future Man on Hulu. It's Josh something or other. He was Pippin or whatever from
Future Man in like a hip hop group.
Future Man is a rapper, I believe. So
he's
yeah.
a rapper, yeah.
But it's a Seth Rogen production. Like Seth Rogen's the executive producer on it. And it's like, I hate time travel stuff. Like I really don't enjoy time travel style shows. Like I can't watch Doctor Who. Quantum Leap is rough for me. Like, I mean, even some of the better time travel things. Like I was good with the Avengers until they started doing time travel. like I was good with Harry Potter, and then they had the little time travel thing in Harry Potter, and it really ruins a lot of things for me when people try to add stuff time travel in. I just don't like time travel but
it open up so many plot changes.
It does, but that's the problem, is it opens up an infinite number of plot changes. But this Future Man show makes fun of it. Right. It's hilarious. Like, it's a really good show. It's really well written. It's like, it's very much like a Back to the Future, where it's like comedic about it, but it also like, it recognizes the absurdity of it.
Right.
And kind of makes fun of itself for being absurd. And that's what makes it watchable to me. Cause like, as soon as I realized it was time travel, I was like, oh shit, I'm not going to like this. And watched another episode or two. I was like, okay, they deal with it well. Like, they really just kind of make fun of the premise and stuff like that, and say quantum a lot just for stupid sake. But it's also based around a video game, and so like one of the main characters was a character from a video game, and when they came out of the video game into the real world or whatever, but they talk like they're in the video game, so they're like in a battle. Headshot, like he says the things out loud like the video games do and stuff, and it's really funny. Axe strike. It's a good game, or it's a good show. Anyway, that's my
TV rundown for the week.
That's my TV rundown for the week, I guess. I don't know. Well, I really want to talk about this jobs thing, but the AC and Max aren't here, and that we're going to be a portion of that conversation, because I find it's I've heard it referred to as the great like there's the Great Recession and stuff like that. It's the not the Great Retirement, but some R word for quitting your job.
Reassessment,
maybe, but no, that's not the right word. Anyway, same idea. There's a lot of like this whole, because you have a Frito-Lay's. There's a big Frito-Lay on strike going on. There's a John Deere strike going on. There's a. Will you please grab me a wonderful Mexican beer from while you're over there? There is a mine strike down in Alabama going on. It's a pretty major mine, apparently. There's all the shit with the shipping issues that everybody's been talking about. John Deere one's pretty crazy. Apparently they're sending like engineers and accountants into the factory to build tractors.
Really?
Yeah. And so, it's an interesting time for labor, for lack of a better word. Watching all this going on and how little coverage, like, I mean, there has been like, I haven't heard about the John Deere strike anywhere except my Breaking Points show. I haven't seen it on local or national normal news. I don't watch a lot of it, to be fair, but I haven't seen a lot of conversation about it. The Frito-Lay strike I haven't heard about anywhere else. Like that's one of the things that that Breaking Points does. They do chase those stories down. That's one of the topics that's important to them, and so they go find those stories.
I think I've seen a number of them on Reuters and the Associated Press.
Apparently, some like one Starbucks in Massachusetts is trying to unionize.
Really?
Yeah, and Starbucks is freaking out. Like to the point where they sent guys from Seattle, from the home corporate office, to go in there and have sit down meetings with the staff to try to talk them out of it, basically.
Trying to unionize for better pay?
I guess. I don't know. I haven't heard exactly what their goal is, but probably. But
I was reading something about Norfolk Southern was, I think, trying to pass some rules to prevent unionization and striking.
I mean, I've been on the show, and I am still personally pretty anti-union as a person. I don't generally like what I see out of unions in the long term. Like general, normal, basic stuff, sure. Like, I get it. Like, I understand the premise of a union, like back in, post-industrial revolution, where you had fucking 7-year-olds working 18-hour shifts and shit like that, that something needed to be done, and the union was a solution for that. You had people working 20-hour shifts and stuff like that, and the union's making progress out of some of the serious cases of worker mistreatment, or whatever you want to call it. I just don't know, and maybe it could be a blind spot for me. I just don't know that I see the levels of what I see as a level of management malfeasance to employees kind of thing that necessitates a union to offset it. But maybe I'm wrong. In general, and again, I don't know. I don't have a factory job.
I think it varies by jobs. You've got some of the food processing plants that have come under scrutiny for a lot of them been hiring, migrant labor. But at the same time, it's their numbers and quotas are getting raised and raised, where you really got people that are standing in one spot and they're getting it's like carpal tunnel syndrome, basically, just from repetitive movement.
Yeah, your original, your first phrase in that statement is why I don't see it as big of an issue, is that it varies from place to place. And so the problem I'm seeing is that we're getting into spots where these are the only jobs anymore. And that's the scary, I guess that's the really scary part, where, you have the town that is the factory and everybody either works for the factory or indirectly, at the, they work for the restaurant where the guys at the factory come to have lunch kind of shit. But, right now, especially, there's other jobs. And I think that's what's happening, is that a lot of people are like, I don't like my job. Lots of people are hiring right now. I can go find a job where I might actually like that job. And so it's a great reassessment, I think, or as you put it, but that's not the word. God damn, it's going to drive me crazy. But now yours is stuck in my head. But, that premise with what this, with the COVID response kind of shit, I find it interesting because, I don't understand how we can have so much demand for work. Now hiring all over the place, everybody talking about, all the restaurants don't have enough people to run shifts, and they're, splitting days. IHOP. Did I tell you the story about IHOP?
I don't think so.
So every Friday we rotate through the house, and everybody gets to pick where we go out to eat on Friday. And so a couple weeks ago, the youngest wanted to go to IHOP for his Friday dinner. IHOP up the street here is closing at 3. They're open from 5 a.m. to 3. IHOP was always a 24-hour place as far as I was concerned.
Right. But
they're not even open for dinner because they don't have staffing.
Yeah.
And so that's the world we're in. And so but you hear that all the time. And so people are like, that you have the option. I can go get another job. But that's not really happening either. And that's where I'm confused in this whole conversation. I think AC is absolutely dead right with the story he shared, and that the headline being that, it's a labor shortage.
Right.
Which is a false statement. We have the labor. It's a desire to work shortage. I don't want to do this shit for what you're going to give me for it anymore.
I don't think that was in that headline, but
that was not the quote of the headline. No, but it was it's not worth it.
You actually watched the video. I'm sorry.
I did. I've right. But the headline is, corporate America wants to frame what's going on as a labor shortage, which is wrong. It's a child care shortage. It's a living wage shortage. It's a hazard pay shortage and a healthcare shortage. Unless we fix these things, we're not going to fix the labor shortage. So it's basically, it's not worth it for me to go work for you anymore for whatever reason it is to me as the employee. It doesn't make sense to me. I work X number of hours. I got to spend X number of dollars on the healthcare you provide, which is a discount or whatever. Right. I've got to pay for
childcare.
I got to pay for childcare, and there's shortages in that industry as well, which is making it more expensive, which is making it harder for people to afford. And so I don't know what to do with that part of it. Hazard pay, I don't know exactly what that means. But then I don't like the phrase living wage, but it's, you take all these factors together, and I'm working 40, 50 hours a week, and I can't pay my bills.
Right.
That's not worth at some point it comes to a head, and with everything else that's gone on, I think that reassessment is what's happening. A lot of people are going, I can't get to the end of this. This is just a never-ending cycle, and I go deeper and deeper into a debt hole. So what's the point?
Right.
And so I understand that part of the premise.
I think a handful of these strikes that I've seen have been more for workers of companies that, through the pandemic have flourished and are making record profits.
Yeah.
And it's those workers that are like, hey, we've stuck with you through this and haven't left our job and this labor market the way it is. And you guys haven't even thrown us a little bit of an extra bone for the record profits you're making.
Yeah. Yeah, that is definitely a thing too. The John Deere story is one of those too. It's a little bit different, but John Deere is definitely one of those companies that did well. They were producing a lot of stuff because with everything else going on, some of the farming issues, there were shortages in crop yields last year, and so there's more demand this year, and so more farmers are out there working harder, and so apparently the normal cycle for John Deere is the end of season is when they do their most sales because that's when the farmer sells the crop.
Right. They've got their
money, and so they go out and invest in the equipment they need for next year.
Right.
And so that's part of the timing of this John Deere strike was intentional because this is that time of year. But apparently, the first day that they sent the white collar down into the factory at the John Deere place, 8 a.m. There's an ambulance rolling in.
Really?
Yeah, some guy was trying to drive. I mean, it was already a completed tractor that was in the factory. Apparently, this is, as I heard it at least, is that they were trying to get this tractor off the line, which was done, to take it out to wherever it gets shipped from or something like that. And the guy doesn't know how to drive a tractor and ran into a pole or something like that and hurt himself in driving the tractor. Yeah. So
should have been wearing a seatbelt.
Engineers can't drive, apparently. So anyway, I don't know. It's again, I don't know. I guess the what's the solution here? Because it goes into a topic that we've hinted 1,000 times that we're never going to actually talk about, is the cost of healthcare. You know, because again, as the headline says, it's healthcare shortage, which I tend to agree with. There's a shortage of affordable healthcare. You know, and then where the fault lies in that, how do we fix that problem? And I mean, I had one of my libertarian guys went on a good rant about it. It's like, you know, plastic surgery was brought about in the end of World War I.
Sure.
Was the introduction of plastic surgery, but as far as it becoming a truly elective kind of vanity issue, was like the 80s when it really started to catch on. But it's not a regulated part of the industry like the rest of healthcare is. And so it's gotten increasingly cheaper over time because there's more doctors doing it. The procedures have gotten easier and faster. There's better understanding and shit like that. Normal market things that happen in any industry is the longer it goes on, usually the cheaper it gets. It's normal.
Okay.
That's not how the rest of healthcare works. Like more normal, actual traditional healthcare, non-elective issues, it hasn't gotten cheaper over time. It has gotten more expensive over time. And so,
give me an example.
I mean, I'd have to look it up, but I would wager just a simple broken leg, like we have in this house right now.
Right.
In 1980 versus today, I would say it outpaces inflation in cost. I'd have to look that up and find somebody that's pulled the stats for me, but I would wager that is accurate.
So I mean, I would think like X-rays have become cheaper because they're
They're digital now. They don't actually use film anymore. Again, that'd be a good question to ask and follow down the rabbit hole, but I couldn't I
don't know if some of that is, you know, not necessarily, but that department, but that hospital's budget for them just buying new equipment for other areas, and they can all kind of feed off each other in the budgets. Or essentially, you know, to upgrade the doctor's office or that hospital, it's costing them on average more, so they just kind of incrementally increase all the services.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a good question, but I think that's the question. I mean, that's the conversation that needs had. I think that's part of, and again, in AC's wonderful words, it's complicated.
Right.
You know, but just taking this headline and taking it piece by piece, I mean, I think childcare shortage is a thing. I think there's an issue, and I can't remember who asked this question. It's like, what happened to, and not in the sexist version of it, but what happened though the dad went to work and mom stayed home with the kids format because dad made enough money and mom could stay home with the kids. It wasn't that mom needed to go to work. I think I was talking to Eddie Manis about it, and then he happens to be one that both his parents worked when he was a kid, and so it didn't fly. that example didn't land well for him personally, but you know, that was at least maybe the history is wrong. Maybe that whole, you know, 50s, 60s history that we all harken back to is a lie, where we had a stronger, bigger middle class.
I think it was a slight exaggeration.
But where you could go, you know, where there were families that, you know, the dad was a factory worker,
right,
and that was enough. It wasn't great, but it was enough that, you know, you could afford the house.
Yeah, I mean, like my mom's parents, her dad worked, and I think her mother, like made cakes and basically had like a little side business. It was like an actual business, but was, you know, baking cakes to make extra money. Of course, they had a shit ton of kids. You know, both my dad's parents worked. Both my parents worked.
Right. I mean, my mom didn't until I was in like middle school. She did until my sister was born.
Yeah.
And then she took time off and didn't go back into work until I was in middle school. Got bored hanging out with me, I guess.
trying to remember where I read it. There was actually it was like a federal child care service that was, or program that was started around World War II when there were so many soldiers overseas, and there were many more women that were asked to come into the workforce.
Yeah,
which led to a child care shortage.
I think it's an odd, weird issue that we have. And I don't know if it's a we have. Essentially, it's like the idea.
I mean, in years past, you had a lot more, what they call multi-generational families, where you had, grandparents living with you to kind of be that extra helping, raising hand.
Right. We'd rather, I guess, and I don't know, I guess then the argument would be that's the consequence of who we are today. I'd rather pay for it than have my parents do it. But I can't pay for it. And I don't live near my parents, so I can't have my parents do it. So the government needs to do it for me. I don't know. I'm just throwing shit out. I'm not.
I don't think it's asking the government to do it for you.
I mean, some of it is. I mean, that's what I think. I think there's a good number of people that want the universal pre-K for an extra year of school, so they can get their kids in school a year earlier on the community dime instead of their own. I think that's part of that conversation. There's other benefits to that. You get kids reading a year earlier. It's helpful and shit like that. But
that's a major benefit.
Yes. I'm not saying
I don't think there's that many parents that are looking to put their kids in pre-K just to get child care.
All right. I mean, that was as
that's
for
us.
What
preschools are for, if they really wanted just that option, where they kind of half teach them something.
Right. And it's also child care.
Yeah.
Right. But I pay for preschool, where universal pre-K, I don't pay for it.
It's coming out of your taxes.
Correct. Same way kindergarten comes out of my taxes. It's not
exactly.
It doesn't come out of my budget, my personal budget.
Right.
Unless somehow we get to a level of complete understanding as a society where anything that costs money, your taxes adjust immediately if you use that thing, then it doesn't cost me anything. I'm paying the same taxes either way.
Right. Your taxes, I don't think they're going to increase your taxes just because they implement universal pre-K.
I mean, they're going to have to at some point. But it's not going to be relative to what it costs.
No, I had a kid go through pre-K. It's already in place. I don't really know how we don't already have pre-K. Pretty sure Tennessee already has pre-K system set up.
I don't know.
I don't know if it's at a limited. We used
the church. We used an outside one. We didn't use it. I don't think there's a Knox County pre-K program. I think there are some that are affiliated and that do some things, and there's some programming and stuff that Knox County helps provide so that the preschools can help get the kids on the kindergarten level or whatever. But I don't know that there's... I don't think it's a Knox County pre-K.
I'm sure it was through the county.
All right.
It was on Carnes's property.
Interesting. Things I didn't know, which is fair. But again, going through this headline, it's like, yes, childcare is an issue that we have, and it's an expensive issue, whether it's the schools or a separate childcare thing. Either way you want to look at it. The school systems are expensive too. The amount of tax dollars that are collected and used on school systems and how much money comes out of your check for taxes is a thing, and it's something to talk about too. If we're going to use that as part of the child care things. But then the living wage shortage, I think, I don't know I don't like that term per se. I don't know what a living wage is, because I don't know. It's such a sliding scale of stuff.
It is, yeah.
And depending on where you are, living wage is different, which is why I don't like that it's a federal conversation. That's what I don't like. If the state of Tennessee was having one, I'd get on board. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily agree with it wholeheartedly or whatever, but I'd get on board with the conversation because it's a state level conversation. But I don't think the federal government needs to be mandating a minimum wage. I think it's a mistake, because I think it's one of those that nobody's the mean, as they say. Like, there's nobody, like, if everybody's on a scale of 1 to 100 in income or whatever you want to call it, or cost of living or whatever, 50, there's a very small percentage of people that are at 50. There's a bunch of people at 1 and 2. There's a bunch of people at 98, 99. There's people at 55 and 65 and 45 and 35. There's not a lot of people at 50. So that if you set everything to 50 because that's the mean of the community, it's not going to serve anybody well. That's what I don't want to see. Same thing with schools. That's one of my major issues with schools is that I don't care if they're the same age or not. I don't care if they're born on the same day and they lived in the same household. Kids aren't the same. And we can't treat them like they're the same once they hit the school system. And
How do you individualize education?
I don't know. I don't know, but the state being the arbiter of how schools work is probably the worst thing I could think of to try to get a flexible school system that could...
What would be better?
Do what?
What would be better in your mind?
I mean, I think at least a local school board that is independent of the state would be a pretty good spot. I think it would be better. It would be better. I wouldn't say it would be the best.
To have more county standards versus state standards.
I don't care about standards. I don't know what standards. Again, that goes back to my whole argument. I don't know what good is a standard to a kid? What does that do for the kid to have a standard?
What good's an education for a kid?
A standard and education are not the same thing.
No, I'm asking you similarly.
But so you're answering my question by asking me a different question. There is value in education.
I wasn't answering your question.
Oh, okay. As long as you acknowledge.
I was just asking you a different question.
Okay. I don't know. I think I think there's a lot of questions about what we educate our kids about and how we educate our kids. Maybe not how. Well, no, how is what I'm arguing about in the first place. But what's of value to teach and stuff like that, I think is an issue. I think there's other things that could be taught. I mean, I think the core thing that a lot of elementary school is supposed to do and what we're dealing with right now is the learning how to learn, which is important. The actual ability to figure out how to learn something, not just
critical thinking skills type
not
thing.
Just be told a fact and repeat it.
Right.
Not just be said, hey, read this passage and tell me 5 things out of this passage. Go out and read it yourself and give me some information about this thing and let's figure it out. Like that premise is important. But I mean, I think, again, goes to my recollection of my school experience. I don't remember, I took home ec in middle school. I don't think I took home ec in high school. I took some auto mechanics. But like, I don't know, like issues that I've had with employees in the past and like stupid shit like can't write a check stuff. Like stupid shit like can't balance their own budget, which I was really terrible at. And I think all kids are terrible at, or young adults are terrible at some level. But not having like a real conversation about how a budget works to a young person. I feel like that's something we could put in the school system and make a big fucking deal out of.
I've heard of some schools doing that, kind of having like a life skills kind of elective. Right.
I think all this debt that we're comfortable with as a society is something we should teach to be avoided at all costs. Living in debt is a problem, and we do it, and we are comfortable with it, and we're sold it every fucking day on the TV and shit like that. Yeah. And as far as I can tell, there's nobody out there going, hey, outside of parents or something like that, there's nobody out there going, hey, this is a problem. We need to do something about this. We need you to stay out of this. Like, hey, those checking the cash people, bad people. Don't spend your money with them. Don't borrow money from them. It's bad for you. You are worse off every time you touch those people. Then, yeah, check cashing places suck. So, anyway,
checking the cash.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is to the. I mean, I think I again, not to give AC credit for fucking shit, but there's a lot of shit going on that goes into this. Again, going back to the particular of the labor shortage argument, right. There's a lot of factors that are going into that. I think people are exhausted with working and not getting ahead ever.
There's definitely some fields, factory workers, of course, healthcare. Most of those started getting very burnt out, working longer hours this past year.
I mean, I don't even think it's that though. I think that's stuff that was before that. I think that's the thing. I think the pandemic was a magnifying glass more than it was some sort of detonator to the system at large. I think most of this stuff.
Yeah, I think pre-pandemic, I mean, there was a nursing shortage. There was a big debate of even how many hours what they call residents coming out of med school would be able to work.
Right.
There's some that'll work like a 24-hour shift.
Which
it's like, how are you learning when you're on your feet 24 hours a day and trying to learn?
Yeah. I need another score here so I can hit my over.
Yep.
Pretty sure it's 66.
Yeah, and there's that aspect of people's money going towards that as well.
What?
Gambling.
Oh. I mean, there's people that have problems.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, man. I'm good.
No.
I mean, how do you make UT football interesting? You bet on it. I mean, because it's not going to be an interesting game regardless. Actually, that's not true. That Ole Miss game was crazy. So it was weird. So I was listening. As a narcissist as I am, I was listening to our last week's show on Monday, having found out later Saturday all the stuff that happened after we quit recording at the end of the game.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, all the stuff we talked about during the game and stuff like that as we were discussing or whatever, and it's like, we have, like, as much as I joke about we shouldn't talk about sports on the show because it's, we may have some copyright issues or something like that, we really shouldn't talk about live sports on the show because it is immediately out of date.
Yeah.
Like, all the conversation about the game, everything about the game that we had, we didn't talk about the game a ton during the show, but for what we did, Joe, like, it had, like, anything that we talked about was completely overwhelmed by that last 54 seconds.
Right.
That last 54 seconds was all that was mattered and all that was worth talking about. And, you know, now it's a week later and I don't really feel like talking about it other than I think the $250,000 fine's a fucking joke so far. We'll see what else comes down. But the SEC dropped it to...
What do you mean it being a joke?
That's a joke. I mean, like, okay, so one thing I didn't realize that they sold booze at games. I thought they were only selling booze at non-Tennessee events, like at non...
No, I think they were doing that last season, too.
I guess they are. I mean, that's my understanding of it.
They started like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe. And I guess now there's talk about, I guess, not doing that for night games, only maybe just for afternoon games. But, I mean, fucking people are going to pregame, whether you're selling beer in the stadium or not.
Right, but I'm saying, like, they're selling in stadium now. So the reason I bring that up, though, is that I'm sure since it's a public school, there's probably some public record of how the commission. Actually, probably not, because it's probably some third party that the university brings in to handle their concessions. But I mean, I would bet that they did $1 million in beer sales.
So you're saying the 250 was a joke? Is it being a drop in the bucket?
Right, and I mean, and you know, we're talking about stadium prices on beers and shit like that. It's not like a bar or restaurant you go to. The markup on a glass of wine or a beer is pretty decent.
Right.
You know, you go to the grocery store, there's next to no markup. Grocery stores make very little money off of your beer sales. But with what they sell beer at, you know, I mean, they sell it at 300, 400%. So that $250,000 coming out of beer sales is probably negligible to beer sales, let alone everything else sold that day. And so, like, that's why I was thinking,
right.
It's like, okay.
It's also $250,000 the college itself doesn't have to spend on whatever.
Yeah, but $250,000, and to go into AC's point about it, $250,000, all of a sudden UT football is on the something to talk about, something to do, and I want to go to the games now because they're exciting, even though they do stupid shit like that. You know, if it gets, no press is bad press, however you want to sell it. Yeah. Does that, I guess realistically, the only reason that happens is because we made a game of it. And that UT, that play, that not very questionable call that everybody got pissed off about, that caused the incident of people throwing shit on the field, was because we were in the game with 54 seconds left. It wasn't because we were getting blown out or we weren't blowing some joke team out. Is that we were in the game with a solid Ole Miss team that, I think we were like a 10-point dog at least. No, it was a pick. That's right. It was a pick, which I couldn't figure out why it was a pick. Take that back. It was a pick game. So Vegas said it's supposed to be a close game, but we locally are like, nah, we're not beating that. I took Ole Miss in the pick. I ain't gonna lie, but the only reason that happens is because it was a game.
Right.
If it wasn't a game, that specific play didn't matter. The reaction from the fans to that play didn't matter. So in the grand schemes of the marketing thing that is the machine that is UT football, that all it cares about is money, as AC likes to bring up, and doesn't care so much about their product. Well, their product is getting people to come. Like, their product's actually getting better because we stayed competitive with an Ole Miss team that in most people's opinion should have blown us out. And so, even though they got that $250,000 fine, they got that $250,000 fine because they were in a competitive game with a team that was better than them. And so I think the $250,000 fine is not. It's not nothing, to me and you. But I think, I think relatively speaking, I think if you tried to put that into comparable, it's our $5 bet last week. Yeah, it's $5 I don't have anymore, but I'm not freaking the fuck out because I lost that $5. I think that'd be the quickest comparison I can think of.
I don't know what kind of budget they're looking at. I would think that $250,000 would be worth a little something more to them.
It's a good question. I don't know what kind of revenue the university alone gets on a game day. But, I'd say they do more than a couple $1 million in parking.
That you think the university sees?
In their parking lots, yeah. And I'm not, just in their parking lots. I'm not talking about all the other ones. But, all the parking passes sold. They do multiple. I don't know what. I think list is like $65. I think is the cheapest ticket you can get for a UT game. If you're not a student,
so do you buy individual parking passes for individual games for university?
It's usually it's
lots.
A lot of times it's part of your season ticket packets and stuff like that, where you buy a space for the season, and you buy your tickets for the season.
But faculty parking lots, faculty,
right, and student parking lots, non-commuter or commuter parking lots, and
right,
all that stuff at $10 or $15 a space per week. And there are hundreds of spaces in each lot. I remember friends getting towed out of parking lots that lived on campus but were parked in the wrong parking lot the night before game day. We did it. We towed people all the time when I was working on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Friday night, when we left at 4 or 5 in the morning Friday night after cleaning up, if there was any car out there that wasn't somebody that was working and we didn't know whose car it was gone before we left. We had the lot all roped off, and probably within an hour or so of us leaving at 5 in the morning, the guy that sold the parking lot spaces would go down there and set up his little tent and sit there and sell the parking space for the day. But that was off campus. That's a different thing.
Right.
I'm just saying. I don't know. It's a good question, but I would say that UT alone is probably 10 digits. I'd say they're tens of millions of dollars per home game. Be my guess.
I would think with a bigger game, there's also more costs in there. I don't know if they've got to hire more ushers, etc.
Sure. But I'm not, and again, I don't mean $10 million in income. I mean $10 million in revenue.
Okay.
I'd say, big home game, like that Ole Miss game was, I'd say it's probably $25 million that they made. Probably spent 15, 18, maybe 20. Now with that $250,000, they spent $20,000 or, $10,250,000 instead of $10 million on stuff.
I was trying to remember if anything like that has happened in recent years at any other games.
I remember I think one of the last games I went to that I got student tickets for. A couple people got dragged out near me for throwing shit on the field. It was at our own bench, too. People were throwing, UT students throwing shit into UT's bench because they were pissed off.
Yeah, I think that day there was 15 or 19 people that got arrested.
There was a lot of people throwing shit. They should go to jail. I think that's... I originally, I remember, I can't remember what it was. Probably a hockey game or something. I just remember, the announcer during a game or right before a game started is don't throw things on the ice. It's a federal, or it's a crime. And they actually listed the Tennessee NO did, Tennessee code 624.62B. It's basically it's a crime to interfere with a public event of that sort or something like that. It is written into law. It's not a private property thing, which is weird on the grand scheme of legals or whatever. It's weird that a state entity can have authority over a private event like that, but I get it. It's one that's given. It's an exchange that the private entity gives up that authority so that they can have the authority.
We're giving you access to watch a state-sanctioned, sporting event that you are now stopping and could cause the ending of that that event.
Right. Essentially it's you're interfering with 100 people or 100,000 people's party.
Right.
And that's a crime. I get it. I really, that's not on the long list of things that I don't think should be crimes. That's not really one that I care to argue against. But, so yeah, again, anyway, so, we're apparently we're sexist on the show. Women need to go home and cook and clean and take care of the kids.
Let's start this weed business.
The reality is that it's unfortunate. It is an unfortunate reality that functionally a small family can't survive on one income. That's a problem.
See, you think that most families should be able to survive off of one spouse working?
I think that would be an ideal situation. I don't think that's a functional situation in the world we live in currently. Need to. That if you wanted to raise your own kids instead of sending them to child care, that you could.
All right.
Because again, it's like, that's one of those things that me and the missus had talked about once upon a time when our kids were younger. And it's like this argument of like, you go to work and you make $100 for your shift. And in the 6 hours you're gone for work making that $100, we pay $55 for a babysitter.
Right.
So really you just went to work for 6 hours for $40. Is 6 hours of your work worth $40? Or would you rather not make that money and raise our kids?
Right.
And that's a conversation that we've had. And and that's that. I think that's part of the problem is I don't think people think about it. I don't think people do the valuation of their labor that way. I think most people think about it. It's like, I need to work because we need more money.
Right. Some people's health care is tied to them working so many hours.
Right. And that's the other thing I wish we could get out of. I think that's one of the biggest problems we have is that healthcare is tied to work. I think that was a legal mistake. I think that was who was it? Somebody told me that. I think it's an Eisenhower put that in. It was the first to start mandating that start encouraging or mandating that companies make
offer insurance to full time.
Yeah. Because I think it's unfortunate. I think it's terrible. I think it's terrible that people are stuck in a position on whether or not they want to keep their job, not because they make enough money, not because they like the job, but because they need insurance.
Right. And
again, that's a two-way street. That's part of it. Part of the problem is that their insurance is attached to their job, and part of it is how expensive healthcare is. Is that they know if they don't have that insurance and anything happens, they're done.
Right. But logic would think that a company with enough employees should be able to get a better group rate with having that many people signing up for insurance.
I don't know.
Many times it doesn't work out like that.
Right. And you're right. I think that ship has sailed in concept. Because I still think that's a fucking... Because then why couldn't you have a broker? Why couldn't, we have my neighborhood's insurance where I broker it for everybody. And I say, look, I got a neighborhood and we have 1,000 residents in the neighborhood. I'll bring you all those people. Give us a good deal. Why can't I do it that way instead of having it be through their employer? It's the same premise, but...
I'm assuming it's tied more to work because it's easier just to take that payment out of checks.
Right, because you're guaranteed your money. Yeah, you're guaranteed your money. The person doesn't... You don't have to worry about the employee forgetting to pay the bills.
You being a broker for the neighborhood, somebody's
I'd have to go out and collect.
Right.
Right, and who does that protect? The insurance company. They don't have to worry about getting paid.
Who would protect the broker?
Do what?
Who would protect the broker?
I don't know. That's the risk the broker takes. I don't know how to say. And I guess that's part of the deal that the broker has to make with them.
Or maybe it's more of a pain in the ass to send out so many cancellation letters. Like, sorry, you've been canceled. You've been canceled.
I mean, fine, whatever. That's part of the game, I guess. But I mean, it's just, but by it being a deal with payroll and the insurance company. Let's say I'm done with it. Let's say I don't think my insurance company is working for me. Like I just don't feel like it's worth the money anymore. And I expect I'm done.
Right.
Well, until I get all the shit fixed with my payroll and go through all my HR and all that kind of shit, they're going to keep taking their money. Where if I'm like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm done. Your coverage said you told me and you sold me on this idea that it was going to do this, that, and the other. And I took my kid in for a broken arm and I still had to pay $1,200 out of pocket. And that was not the deal that you told me. That's not the way this is supposed to be. That's not what we agreed on. I'm not paying you anymore because that's the power that I should have as the customer in insurance. That's a harder thing to do when I have to go through my company than if I just don't pay. I'm not giving you money. It takes the power away from me as the consumer by not me as the consumer directly buying my insurance instead of buying it through. That's my point.
don't see how it's much of a difference between you sending a letter of cancellation and your HR person sending a letter of cancellation.
I mean, I just don't send a check. That's the difference. My HR person's going to send the check because they don't know any better.
You got a shitty HR person.
Maybe. That's why I'm the HR person. That's why I don't get insurance through our company. Not really. My company's pretty good about it. But again, it's like, I don't know. It's one of those that, like, I don't think that people think about it in totality. They think about it, it's like, well, you get paid $15 an hour. That's your wage. So we get paid $15 an hour and insurance and X and X and X and X and all these other benefits that we require or think should be required or think are needed to exist. And nobody rolls that into totality and what it actually costs to employ you. Because even if you don't have any of the other benefits that we're talking about, paid time off, any of that stuff, even if you don't have that as part of your deal as employment, if I pay you $10 an hour as an employee, you cost like $13. That's just the reality. But nobody considers that as part of the conversation. Because nobody knows about that part because it's all behind the scenes tax bullshit that you have to hire an HR person to deal with because a normal business owner can't deal with it themselves. Which is a whole other cost that I'm not even going to lay into how much it costs to employ people. Like, the cost of employees is expensive regardless of what you're paying them. But nobody talks about that part of it because nobody knows about that part of it. Everybody just thinks that you go to work, you get a check, and you go home. That's not how it works. You know, like, I'd say, yeah, I would say that a $10 an hour employee at a small business that doesn't have their own payroll, that either contracts their own payroll out or does it themselves, I'd say a $10 an hour employee for a small business is probably a $15 to $17 an hour cost employee. Because of what has to be done, because of the rules of employment. And that goes up, you know.
What's the biggest cost? I know you don't want to, I'm not encouraging you to lay into.
No, I mean, payroll taxes being the majority, probably the majority of that, because, you know, everything that you get taken out of your paycheck. So again, $10 an hour employee works 40 hours. That's $400, $400 a week employee.
Right.
Take home was like $350. Something like that. I don't know. Whatever the math is, $350, $362 or something like that. Well, that $38 that comes out of your check that you pay in taxes, I match as the employer. I have to by law.
Okay.
So, you know, that's now for 40 hours of work, you actually cost me at least $432 an hour just in tax.
That's Social Security?
Social Security, income tax, and Medicare, Medicaid.
You have to match all three of those.
Yeah. So the entirety of your tax comes out, I match. I could be wrong on the exacts of this, but generally speaking, I have to match some of them. Unemployment insurance is another one I have to match. So just that part is, you know, a couple percent. I don't know, probably 15%, something like that of what your already hourly is on top of. And then if I'm trying to do it myself, it's the time it takes me to do that. There's a cost in that. That's a little bit harder to do as a business owner to actually evaluate what that cost is. But, you know, we have a payroll company that works our payroll for us, and I still spend 2 hours a week, give or take, on just getting the information to payroll.
Right.
And then payroll, they're really good at it, and so they probably only spend another hour or two. But, you know, they're certified accountants, so they're probably $50 an hour employees.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if they spend 2 hours a week, that's $100. So we're looking at a $400 a week employee that, you know, that $100 spreads out across the number of employees, but we'll say 10% of that applies to them. So I'd say you're looking at least $50 to $100 more on top of is what it costs to employ that person. Now, you get into Walmarts and shit like that. It's a whole different animal. They have their own HR department. They have their own payroll department that handles all that stuff in-house because they're big enough that it makes sense they can hire a person to handle payroll because they have enough employees themselves to spread that shit out. But at the end of the day, those costs are still there. And we don't talk about those when we have those conversations because nobody thinks about them. And that's not to say that we shouldn't pay people more. I'm not trying to argue that minimum wage should go down or not exist or shouldn't go to 10 or whatever. That's not my point in any of this. My point is just to say that we're not even adding insurance. We're not even adding child care. We're not even adding life insurance stuff that companies like to throw on and stuff like that. We're not adding paid time off, which is a big thing that people make a big stink about, which I think we should have more. Vacation should be a bigger deal, and we should have more of it more often, kind of thing. I agree with that. But, we expect all these things out of our employers, and then we expect nothing else to change. We expect the product to come out and cost the same. But we want to jack up, your base pay $5 an hour. And it's like, well, it's not just $5 an hour. And I'm not saying it's not valid and it's not reasonable, and that we shouldn't, figure out a way to do better on these employees' behalf. But I think there's a lot more to it than just, let's jack up their base pay. Let's require insurance coverage. Let's let's do a single payer system. I think a single payer system is nice because at least it takes it off of the employer. But I don't know that that's the solution I want either. Like, I would like it to be off employers. I think that's a mistake. But it's already there, and so we're dealing with it. So that's my rant on that one. But did I go through the whole thing? I don't know what hazard pay is. I don't know if the hazard pay shortage is an argument about those of us essential people that had to work through the pandemic didn't get hazard pay. We just got regular pay.
Yeah, I was assuming that's what that's kind of alluding to. I mean, there are certain industries that you get hazard pay for, like with truck drivers. If they're carrying hazardous loads, they're paid more because they're carrying a hazardous load.
Right.
Which they then also have to have a higher licensure to be able to do it anyway, that they've paid more to have that higher accreditation.
Right, which again,
that's kind of a separate hazard.
But I think that's a market. I think in a real world, that'd be a market conversation, whatever it is. It's like, it's not the same job today because of X.
All right.
Whatever X is, it's not the same job. And that as a employer, I think the responsible thing to do would be to say, hey, we've got a thing going on that's making your job harder than it is normally. Need you to work, but here's a little something because you're doing more.
Right.
I don't necessarily have an issue with that. Again, it goes to the problem is like, who gets to choose what hazard pay is? Like, I don't know, you're a fucking oil rig worker. It's hazard pay every day, all day.
Right.
So do I hire you at $10 an hour, but since it's a hazardous job, it's automatically $20 an hour? Whatever. I don't know. Like, why would you, I don't know. Like, some of that just seems like it's one of those who gets to make those decision kind of conversations.
I mean, there's always going to be people that find the fine lines of and push the boundaries of what something's categorized as.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I think the real issue I have with that part of the conversation is who gets to make that decision. And, generally speaking, I just don't trust the government to do it right. It's just me. I don't know. I've been ranting. Go. Give me something. Talk.
I got too much. So I took too many naps today.
Yeah.
It's been tired all day long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could pick up the scurvy from Jacob?
No.
I just made that as a joke, and I'm thinking about it, rashes and stuff. That might be right. He might have scurvy. Nobody tests for scurvy anymore. But that's weird. Like, his whole story,
vitamin C deficiency.
Yeah, his whole story about trying to go somewhere and get tested and get looked at and stuff was a big ordeal. Which is unfortunate. Ended up going down to Cleveland. Something like that.
I think so, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Well, you're not to get into COVID or anything, but that's one reason why they were pressuring so much of people, to try to socially distance and stuff, to not overwhelm hospitals for situations like this where...
okay, yeah.
Someone's concerned about having something, they're trying to get into the hospital. And like you said, he rolled up to the ER and was like, nope, I'm either going to sit here 4 hours and just be waiting forever.
Yeah, and that's, again, I don't want to do this.
We've got National Guard at the hospital right now.
I know you do.
Many hospitals have pretty much said they're at the point where smaller hospitals where they're literally at triage mode.
Right. Why I don't, again, it's my asshole. I'm going to be a dick here and I apologize preemptively. Why don't we have more ICU beds?
I'm assuming we keep so many on hand because that's how many are needed during a certain time. And I think I think for, in a lot of areas, we realized pre-pandemic, it was things, that were mentioned for 5 or 10 years. Like, hey, if something serious ever happened.
Okay, I agree. Now let's just paint a quick picture here. A couple weeks ago, when AC was in here, he was talking
but basically, ICUs aren't something you can just spring up and like, hey, let's throw a tent up out there and turn that into an ICU unit.
Didn't in New York they turned like the Barclays Center into a ICU unit where they had a bunch of them in like the concourse and shit?
I don't know if they were ICU units. I think they might have been just
beds.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I'll acknowledge that it might take a little more than just to snap your fingers and you can make more ICU beds.
Right.
I would go out on a limb and say it doesn't take a year and a half. Just me. I wouldn't think that it would take a year and a half to get more ICU beds into a hospital.
Right.
Maybe I'm crazy. But again, so a couple weeks ago, and here's the market. Here's my super free market economist kind of bullshittery on it. A couple years ago, we had, or a couple weeks ago, we had AC on. He was telling a story about the 9-year-old girl or whatever that died from COVID, and the family got like a $200,000 bill. Remember we were talking about that?
Vaguely.
And so again, obviously, ICU treatment ain't cheap. She was in the ICU for a couple days before she died or something like that. I can't remember the whole totality of the story.
Right.
And I don't know how much of that $200,000 was ICU beds. But it's obviously a high-value thing right now.
Right.
And if we were in a more market-oriented world, there would be more ICU beds because there would be a market to make more, to have more, because it's a high-value thing. You make a lot of money by putting bodies in beds. Now, why don't we have more beds? If the hospitals are about making money, which I think they are, why aren't they putting more ICU beds in? I don't understand that.
Why do you think a hospital is set up to make money?
Okay, fine. Hospitals aren't about making money. They're about keeping people alive, which we need ICU beds to keep people alive. Why aren't there more ICU beds? Either one works.
No, you're going at it with the wrong frame of mind.
Okay, well, no, you're right.
Is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, let's put them together. Let's actually put both together because I think that's
you're looking at hospitals as a totally market-driven value.
Hospitals want to
because that's why they build hospitals.
Fine. They don't want to make money. They just want to make people better. But they can make money while they're doing it. And ICU beds are a high-value commodity. They can put more ICU beds, help more people stay alive, and make more money at the same time, but they're not putting them in. Why aren't they putting them in?
How the fuck are you calling an ICU bed a commodity?
How
is it a goods?
It is a commodity. There is a need for it. We have need for... That's the whole fucking pandemic. We need more ICU beds. It is a commodity at this point, for conversation's sake.
So I'm going to Google what commodity is.
Okay.
I think you're using it very incorrectly.
Okay, fine. If you're going to pick apart that one word in my phrasing because you don't understand the rest of what I'm saying...
I'm going at the way you're trying to explain this, and you're doing it totally in a monotonistic fashion.
No, I did. I didn't. Because, again, fine, then it's about saving lives.
You're questioning something with a totally... It sounds like you've already, pre-concluded it.
It's about saving lives, then. I don't care which way you do it.
Okay, here's the... I don't know where exactly this is from. Where is this? The American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language?
Yeah, hit me.
The first definition. Something useful that can be turned into commercial or other advantage.
Okay, so that sounds accurate to what I was trying to do it as. Which your disagreement is that you don't think hospitals are about making money. Which I disagree with that at heart, but... We'll go with that for now. Then let's go to what you think it is, and that they're about saving lives. We need ICU beds to save lives. Why don't we have more ICU beds? And it ain't about money, obviously, because they can make a bunch of money if they put more ICU beds in, but they don't care about that part. So it's not a money issue why we're not putting ICU beds in. Why don't we have more ICU beds?
Why don't we have more police officers? Why don't we have more firefighters?
Because they cost money and don't make money.
Drivers?
Because they cost money and don't make money. ICU beds make money.
So we should have them solely to make more money.
No, I'm not saying that at all. We can go 100% on the premise that the hospital wants to save lives. Let's go down that. We're on that. This isn't about money. This is about the hospital wanting to save lives. ICU beds save lives. Not a low percentage of lives with COVID, and they're severe enough to get to the ICU. But they save some. There's value in those for health reasons, not for money reasons. Why aren't they building more ICU beds? Cost is not an argument, not because they don't cost money, but because it's offset by what they collect for using them. So you can't use that as an argument. We don't have more cops.
Right.
We don't have more firefighters. We don't have more EMT drivers because they cost money and don't make money. EMT drivers are a little bit different, but firefighters and cops don't make money. And the cops are a little different too because they kind of make money.
You can have ICU units without staffing them.
Do what?
So you can have ICU units without staffing. I'm saying,
might be,
but if you have a unit, you've got to staff it.
Okay, and that may be a valid argument, and why we're not
quote
doing
unquote maintain it. Because I was trying to think, maybe they could have a separate wing that's closed off until it's ever needed, but then you're still heating and cooling that unit, assuming you've still got to randomly go in there and sanitize.
But that's in the premise that it's only a short-term need. If it's a constantly used item, which right now it would be, then maintenance costs are maintenance costs. They're just a maintenance cost of a used good. Now I agree with you on a maintenance cost of a dead good, where you have a thing that's over there on the side that's not getting touched. How much are you willing to spend to keep it functional, even though it never gets used? Which potentially, as if we ever come out of this pandemic, that would be the end result of these ICU rooms once we get there. And that could be the argument. It's like they don't want to build 100 new beds, and then in a year the pandemic passes and they have 100 new beds that they can't do shit with. Right. If that's the argument, okay, I'm all ears, but that's not.
So I think that's part of it. I'm assuming when they build a hospital or maintain a hospital, they see they're like, we either have more population coming in, which may increase our likelihood of having someone coming in and needing an ICU by a certain
staffing
percentage.
Is the only one I'm going to get behind you on, because I don't buy that if you're sitting down as the money guy at the hospital, that you're saying we don't want to build new ICU beds because sooner or later we're not going to need them and they're going to be dead money in a year from now or whatever. But there's so much money in them right now that you're going to pay them off, so it doesn't matter if they're dead money in a year. You repurpose them in a year, you leave them dormant in a year, you sell them to homeless people, you do whatever you want with them because they're already paid. Because they're expensive currently. Maybe you don't do it because you don't want to drive the price down. But I don't think that works in hospitals.
I mean, I think even over this past year and a half, I don't think there's been that many times, at least locally, where our hospitals have been at complete capacity ICU filled up. We've been right at 90, 95, I think, for good portions of it.
Right, but it's always been the scare that we might go over that.
Right.
And again, I'm not saying we should have built 100% more.
No, it's more just overwhelming the hospital system in general. You may not... The ICU may not be full, but you've got people that don't have to be on ventilators, that aren't on ICU, but are still taking up other hospital beds.
Right, I agree with that. But again, I don't see why aren't we making more space? There's value there. There's money in the market. There's good for the lives of the community.
If we've got hospitals that are closing down, there hasn't been as much need in some areas to where they've got this large hospital with so many doctors and nurses.
Right, pre-pandemic, yes, I agree with that.
Right.
But this isn't a pre-pandemic conversation. This is a now conversation. This is why aren't we working more hospitals, more bigger hospitals, more rooms, more something right now? Why is it that Jacob had to go and look at that ER and go, nope, I'm better off at home with no care because I'm not going to wait 4 hours and get in amongst these other people and get myself sick with something else while I'm here? Why is that the way the system works? That's the whole point of what I'm trying to get to here. Because the market isn't adjusting. The hospitals aren't adjusting to what's happening. And staffing could be the reason, and I'll give you that, and that kind of shuts me down a little bit in what's going on.
Boom.
I'm just saying, if staffing...
I would drop this mic, but I'm not going to break it.
It's expensive, and it's attached to a table. But, that could be part of it, but I don't buy that either, because in the same sense that you're going to pay people, you'll pay people more money to do it. Same thing with the traveling nurse thing that's going on right now, which is a weird-ass system. There are nurses quitting their hospitals so they can go travel, because they make more money traveling.
Right. I think it's all collusion. I think they're all talking to each other like, "Hey, I'm going to leave this place." Yeah. So they're going to be needing people.
Right. And then you have nurses.
I'll go here, you go there. Then
right. You have nurses that are in their own hospital working with traveling nurses.
Right.
That are telling them about how much money they're making. And the hospital that traveling nurse left is short nurses. It's like, oh, well then me at my hospital, I'm going to quit my hospital and go to that hospital.
Right.
That they just came from, and it's all this fucking shell game ridiculousness of move money back and forth, which I don't know what the solution to that is. I mean, I understand it's the need, and that's what the market should do. There's the need. We need more people. We're paying extra money.
All right.
But I think it's, I don't know. Again, this is my market head rolling, which healthcare doesn't necessarily fit the market correctly. But I don't understand why healthcare hasn't expanded functionally and in capacity at all through this. And maybe I'm wrong.
No, we talked about before that basically, you couldn't, if you wanted to, you couldn't build a new hospital in Knoxville or whatever without authorization and blah, blah, blah.
Certificate of need. It's a state document that there's a board of trustees that signs off on a certificate of need, and the majority of that board is included with the CEOs of all the other hospitals in the region. Because they're going to say, yes, I want competition.
There's been some construction project at UT. I'm not really sure what they're doing, but it's like they've been building something. It could just be another parking garage. I don't know.
Again, it's the same thing. We talked about this last week.
I don't know if a hospital can just expand upon their building to add more space to then be able to provide more services. I don't think it's as simply as like, oh, we should just build another wing.
Okay. I mean, what does
especially with material storages? I don't know. What does a factory do?
What does a factory do when the demand for whatever they build in their factory is higher than they could do?
Usually outsource or build another building.
All right, so you can't
or lease another building.
There's plenty of empty places around Knoxville. Why didn't UT go lease a fucking what's it called? Club Lacan's gone on the top of First Tennessee building. Go rent that bitch out and turn it into a bunch of ICU beds.
Because they die on the elevator ride out.
Probably. That's a quick elevator. Don't be like that. You can get it. I mean, it's
not the freight elevator.
That's true. The main elevator though, like basement level 2 to the tippy top is like 30 seconds. It's pretty quick. Anyway, moral of the story is there's space. Like, if we were serious about the pandemic and we thought it was a really, really big issue, we could have put a pause on the transfer of the school board out of the AJ building into the TVA building and refitted the TVA building for a temporary hospital. Is it cheap? Is it easy? No. Is it an option? Yes. It's right as of the pandemic, that building was empty. TVA was already gone out of that one tower. And the school system was starting to do their stuff to get prepped for it. Was it the best solution? Are there other options out there? Probably, but just off the top of my head, one that I know that's civic structures anyway, that could have been an option. We could have done some shit with the TVA building to help alleviate the need for the hospitals to take all the weight so that they could still do their normal stuff too or something. I don't know.
I think we turned Thompson Bowling Green into a temporary hospital unit, like a field hospital, basically.
Right. But again, the point being is like, I don't see, it's part of my confusion about the whole pandemic in general. I don't see the reaction as appropriate to the headlines, I guess. Like, there was the whole thing about the boat, the Army boat or whatever, or the Navy boat that went into the New York and then left.
Right.
But at least locally, and I guess Knoxville didn't get hit that bad in the grand scheme of things or whatever you want to call it. But like, I didn't see like preparations and reactions that seemed to fit the narrative. And I don't know why. And that's not to say the narrative's untrue. It's maybe I didn't understand the reaction correctly, but I didn't we're just now having National Guard people in. Why didn't we have National Guard people in last year?
I agree.
That kind of stuff. It's like you're trying to sell this pandemic as the worst thing ever, and everything that everybody knows that's at disposal when the shit hits the fan in the United States, FEMA and this, that, and the other, didn't seem to mobilize like it was the end of the fucking world. But we're being told it's the end of the fucking world. Like, that's the kind of shit that I don't, like, that's the kind of shit that in my head doesn't click together right. And it may be blank, it may be dead spots, it may be shit that I'm not seeing and I don't know about. But I don't know. That's what I don't get about. Like, again, and I think my assumption is, and it's a fully assumption is, my assumption is most of it is the interplay of state, local, and federal governments, the healthcare system at large, the way the whole system kind of works, has an incentive to not react. Same thing that's going on with the rental thing. In one of the CARES Acts, there was some billions of dollars that went out, that each state got a couple $1 billion each or whatever. It's spread out by population kind of shit. To help with rental assistance, where the Treasury was like, here, people that can't pay their rent, they come to you, say, hey, I can't pay my rent, help me out. Here's money, give them money, help them pay their rent.
All right.
State of Tennessee is giving out next to nothing, and made it really complicated and hard for people to actually go through the process, because the state of Tennessee is afraid they're going to spend it or give it to people, And then the Treasury and the federal government's going to come behind and be like, well, hey, since you did that, this is what you actually owe us and this, that, and the other. And it's going to turn into this big fucking thing. And so the incentive structure is in place where the state's like, well, we're just going to set this over here and not do what you asked us to do with it because we're afraid that when we use it, you're going to now own something or you now get to control X, Y, Z here in our state because there's precedent for it. They know that's a thing that happens. The system isn't designed to actually adjust to what's going on. Or it is designed to, but it's so bogged down with bullshit that
I don't know what the bill or whatever that gave that money out. I'm assuming it's got to be in some kind of legalese. You would think a lawyer would be able to read through it and figure out that there were or were not strings attached to it.
Apparently there's a bunch of states, most states, that have got large funds, large sums of funds, haven't spent barely any of it. Like it was multiple hundreds of billions of dollars of federal money that like 12% had been used by like midsummer.
I know there's some states that, not really, I guess, kind of refused to accept some money because I guess there were conditions put on that, like, hey, we're giving you $10 million, but you can only use towards education, healthcare, or whatever. Right. And the state was like, well, no, if you're going to give me the money, I'm going to put it where the money needs to go.
Right, which that does bring me around to an interesting one that I need to look it up. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. But City of Knoxville announced how they're going to use like $35 million of some of their federal money. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to follow those parameters as far as I get it. It's been a couple weeks ago since I saw the announcement, so let's see if I can find it.
I mean, there was, the CARES Act, the Recovery Act, and I'm sure there were some other random acts passed here and there. It's kind of helping us get down the road type bills.
See if it's in the city blog page. City randomly picks 30 employees for $1,000 in prizes for their voluntary COVID-19 vaccinations. It's not popping up. It's been a couple weeks. They post so much shit. Yeah, fuck. I don't know. Anyway, it's like $35 million they're planning on spending. Some of it was on their buses and some other random shit. But it was like $1 million for like the homelessness thing. And it's like $1 million ain't going anywhere in our homeless issues that we're having in the city right now.
That depends on how it's used. I think I was watching something today. There was a town in Wisconsin that was building basically these like little tiny one-room homes in a city park. Like they said, they had like 75 people or so that had been sleeping in this park. It's at least like temporary housing while they work on getting them into more permanent housing. But they were getting it all set up before winter came in, but small houses had heating and air conditioning. Yeah. They had little bathhouses to at least get them, out of the sleeping out of tents in the park. And I think a lot of it was donated by local builders, volunteers putting in time to build these, like, I think about as big as the size of this room here.
Yeah, little tiny houses.
Yeah. I think they said could sleep 2 to 3 people, had 2 or 3 beds inside.
So, stimulus funding. Let's see if this is the right one.
Yeah, but I've seen some of those houses built for $1,500, $2,000.
Okay, so here it is. City of Knoxville stimulus funding, American Economic Recovery Act, Reinvestment Act. The city has been informed that it is already eligible to receive $10.6 million. The city also seeking other grants that could be totals of millions of dollars in additional funding. Oh no, this is the wrong one. This is this is from Obama's administration. $787 billion measure designed primarily to stimulate the economy and create new jobs while saving existing ones. So, wrong one.
Sorry, that was from a decade ago.
Yeah. I don't remember what were we recovering from during Obama? Oh, the housing crisis?
Yeah, the recession.
The Great Recession.
The Great Recession.
But
thanks, bankers.
Oh, We elected the people that paid them to do it.
Huh?
We elected the people that protected them from their dumb moves. I mean, we bailed them out. Which basically says, hey, do it again. We'll do it again.
I'm not talking about bailing them out. I'm talking about their initial failures.
Right. But they should. I mean, I think, I don't know. I guess that's the question. If anybody, like, we should have been bailing people out, not the big banks out.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. It's a shit show either way, but at least, I don't know, me and you don't lose. The fucking banks do, because they're the ones that actually fucked up. I don't know. I can't find the city thing. I just thought it was like, I was reading through it, and it was just like, it was like a 30 something million total dollars. And it was just like $1 million here, $1 million there, $1 million here, $1 million there, 2,500 here, like weird random numbers. And I was like doing the math in my head, and it only added up to like $14 million. And I was like, that's not, where's the other 20? But, you know, it's probably they get 15 now and the other 15 in a couple of years or whatever kind of shit.
Possibly.
So, yeah, anyway.
What else is going on in the world?
I feel like I'm missing something.
Oh, that damn, have you seen any of the footage of the Spanish volcano? It's been erupting for I think it's over a month now.
No, I've not seen a Spanish volcano erupting for a month.
You haven't heard about this?
I have not heard about it at all.
Oh, shit, man. Pull it up, man. It's fucking nuts.
Tell me all about it.
It's like La Palma. It's off of the coast of Spain. It's an island off the coast of, I think it's a Spanish island. It's like right off the, I guess in between Spain and Africa.
The Mediterranean Sea.
I don't think it's killed anybody yet. It's destroyed a lot of homes, and I guess there's some kind of orchards. I can't remember what was being grown there. It's like
olives.
I was about to say, I was thinking it's either grapes or olives.
I don't know. I was just saying.
Oh, I thought you actually saw it.
There were 42 seismic tremors on the island on Sunday, the largest of which measured 4.3, according to the Spanish National whatever. This is back from October 17th, Reuters. No signs that an end of the eruption is imminent, even though this is the greatest desire of everyone. Oh, well, go figure. Volcanoes don't listen to your desires.
We want it to stop.
Will you please stop, volcano? President Angel Victor Torres said at a Socialist Party conference in Valencia, citing the view of scientists. Streams of lava laid waste to more than 742 hectares, or 1,800 acres of land, and destroyed almost 2,000 buildings in La Palma since the volcano started on September 19th. Holy shit, we're a full month in?
So I was saying, this has been going like, this has been straight up erupting for over a month.
7,000 people have been evacuated. 83,000 inhabitants live on that island. It's part of the Canary Islands off of northwestern Africa.
I thought I mentioned it maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Because it was like last week that the lava actually started flowing into the ocean. Like the lava flow had been moving that because I guess it's a relatively flat island. That it finally started making its way to the ocean. And there was something that's released whenever lava hits the ocean that they had everybody like stay inside and like turn off their air conditioners. So I was trying to figure out what's released. I guess there's some kind of crazy chemical reaction or metals in the lava that are hitting the water, boiling. Yeah, I'm not really sure.
And gets sucked up in the steam and gets aerosolized, and you end up breathing it in.
Yeah, there was some kind of chemical that was, I guess, released during that process.
Sounds terrible.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just going full blast. Like you're looking at one of the volcanoes that's normal that you would normally see in Hawaii. It's just going full blast constantly.
Damn.
Yep.
Is that a global warming thing?
No. It's a tectonic shift.
Just throwing it out there. Everything else is global warming's fault. I figured we'd add that to the list. I figured there was some way it was global warming's fault. That's all I was saying.
I mean, it may be in a roundabout fashion, but I don't think so.
I've noticed that the everything in the House and Senate right now is grinded to a halt. Infrastructure bill's pretty much dead.
Really?
Yeah, Reconciliation Act's dead. I haven't heard. Have they voted?
They've started trying to shave off parts of the $2 trillion thing.
Have they raised the debt ceiling yet?
Pretty sure they did.
I don't know. They were gonna.
I think that was like 2 weeks ago. They passed it to avert the shutdown. I think that's what they're raising it for.
Yeah, they're trying to save off. Apparently, Roberto is taking part in some sort of gathering tomorrow about climate change stuff, and like the headlines about tell Manchin he's an idiot.
In what fashion? I'm confused.
I don't know. Like I just saw there's an event that popped up. Andrew Roberto, city council person,
right,
is part of some sort of gathering about climate change, and one of the topics is going to be Manchin being a douche canoe because he's one of the ones taking the thing apart. Because the reconciliation bill had a bunch of climate change stuff in it, and most of the stuff that Manchin refuses to sign off on it for is climate stuff.
So Roberto is for adding more climate issues?
Yeah, he wants the climate stuff. So, yeah, he wants to call out Manchin for being an idiot.
Yeah.
And lean on our neighbor's neighbor.
Well, Manchin's trying to govern a state that doesn't want to admit that coal is going downhill. It's become more commercialized. Everybody thinks that regulation has killed most of the jobs, but it's automation that's killed more jobs than anything.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's a fact.
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay.
Jesus. I try to agree with you.
I'm sorry, I thought you were saying that's a fair point.
It is a fair point, because it's correct.
All right. I just assumed you were going to push back against it.
No, I mean, I think Max will be the one that tries to explain.
I didn't realize we were almost in agreement.
Oh, wow, is it still funny to you?
Sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's still funny to make the almost in agreement joke.
Out in the West, they're running into a lot of water rights issues, which, I mean, that's something that's been going on for decades. But it's now starting to become more of a
pressing issue.
Coming more to a head.
Well,
they've actually had, kind of crop restrictions going on with some farmers where the states basically said, like, hey, we can't let you grow.
We can't let you take the water. Almonds, right? Almonds is a really watery.
Almonds, yeah. I mean, we kind of forget about it a lot, but California is America's, I don't want to say breadbasket, but apparently that's where most of the almonds of like the world come from, or California. There's a handful of other fruits or vegetables. I think avocados.
Yep. A
lot of them come out of California.
U.S. avocados are Californian. Yeah. Breadbasket's not accurate, though, because like all your grains are still Midwest, plains kind of shit.
I think there are a lot of alfalfa in California.
Feed crop?
A little bit.
Alfalfa is usually as a feed crop. You grow it and sell it to a ranch, and ranch feeds their animals.
Alfalfa, just a funny word.
I like sprouts sometimes on a salad.
Brussels sprouts?
No.
Alfalfa sprouts?
Yeah.
I'm
pretty sure it's alfalfa sprouts. Like the little...
Bean sprouts?
Yeah. Are those alfalfas?
No. I don't think so. I'm not sure what bean sprouts actually are a sprout of. Like a bean pole? Like a pole bean? Can I Google?
No.
I mean, it's crazy if you look at some of the. We've seen a few pictures back around, during the 30s, during like the Dust Bowl and stuff, of where the land in the bread basket, the actual bread basket, used to be, like literally where the land was. And then after so much water pumped out of the Ogallala aquifer, the land has literally shrunk like 30 feet from where it used to be.
Damn, that's a lot.
Yeah. And you think about how large that aquifer is, because it goes over, say, at least 6 or 7 states.
Yeah, that's a lot of states.
That's all just from water being pumped out, so land then subsides down.
Yeah, I don't know about all that as far as physically speaking.
I would say in parts of California, and they were to get to the groundwater, they're having to dig wells, 80 to 100, 200 feet down.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And they pump it up and they put it in the rotating sprinkler thing, and so you have all those weird circles when you're looking down from a plane.
Yeah.
It's always crazy.
That was weird being able to see. I didn't realize that's what it was.
Yeah.
Where are all those circles down there?
Yeah, it's so weird. Fucking crops, growing crops all the time, making more plants. But
trying to feed everybody.
Yeah. Just stop eating and we don't have the weird circles on the ground. I mean, I don't know. This is the grand... I guess the one thing I've truly learned from doing this podcast is it's fucking complicated. And I get it, but it's like we got to start working on stuff. Like, we've got to find places.
Yeah, I think there's just a number of things we kind of keep kicking down the road.
And that's what that's what pisses me off about it. Like, we can't do that anymore. I think... I may think, like, if we're going to go on federal stuff, I think military spending has got to be reined in. We've got to stop doing this where we're spending half of our federal budget that's fucking massive on shit that doesn't help anybody except a handful of major companies that provide the goods of making war. And it's like, I get it. I understand that I didn't, I'm not naive enough to pretend like there aren't people out there that will take advantage of our weakness if we become weaker or whatever. But that's not where the strength is anymore anyway. Bigger guns isn't what warfare looks like anymore.
Right.
It's not doing anything because we can't do that anymore, or we're not willing to do that anymore. If we're willing to go in there and just glass the desert, as they say, or we're just going to bomb it out of existence, yeah, then bigger guns matter. But if we have to, for moral reasons, go in and go door to door, it doesn't matter that we have big guns. And so let's figure out a better, like, I don't know. Again, it's my whole, it's one of my many top issues with government is there's no fiscal responsibility at all by either party. It's not a party thing. It is a universal truth of governance, federally especially, is that fiscal responsibility is not something anybody cares to do because it doesn't get you elected. Because cutting budgets doesn't get you elected. Because when you cut a budget, you cut a service. And some people lose that service and they don't vote for you again. And that sucks. And I don't know how we solve that solution, but it's a bad incentives game that's at play. And we've got to figure it out. We have to, because we can't keep going down this road. Because, inflation is, as I've seen it so far, as I've kind of followed and trying to track it and shit like that, inflation is on things that are demand issues and supply issues. They're not on things. It's not a true inflation currently. We'll see how much that real inflation kicks in later.
Right.
But most of the inflation we're seeing right now is a result of whether it's the chip shortage, supply shortage, labor shortage issues. I'm sorry, we're not using the term labor shortage anymore.
What's it called now?
I don't know, but it's not labor shortage is leaning into the idea that it's a labor shortage and not I don't want to fucking work for you anymore shortage. But all these factors that go into it is what's causing the inflation currently. We'll see if the extra money in the market is what catches up eventually. Housing market's still ridiculous. We've got to find a way. We got to find a way to talk about it and be honest about it with each other. We've got to find a way to simplify it and boil it down and get it so people can understand it, so they can vote more knowledgeably, so they don't buy into dumbass rhetoric of socialists in city council or COVID-denying pee drinkers in city council or whatever the fucking different version of bullshittery that those are the headlines. That's what everybody says. That's what everybody's talking about. They're not talking about policy stuff. They're not talking about what the job can even actually do. Because I still don't know that answer, and I've talked to most of the fucking people that are asking for the job.
Right.
My last conversation with Scott was probably the most eye-opening of it. It's really, if you want to get a functional thing done on city council, what you're really doing is you're playing a politics game to get the mayor to do it for you, because you can't really do it on your own. You need to get neighborhoods of people that want a thing, whatever the thing is. I can't remember what the story he told was, but it was a non-denominational church group. Like, it was a bunch of different churches that had come together, and they had a program that they wanted help, and they wanted some grant money or some funding from the city to help put this thing together for their neighborhoods and stuff like that. And this one city councilor took up the cause, if you will. And as much as Scott didn't say it point blank, what it read to me like is that the city councilor went and did meetings with these different churches, and then went to other churches, and they grew numbers to where I think the mayor saw it as I think this was Rogero at the time. The mayor saw it as hey, that's a big voting block that person has. This is now a project that I think I need to do. Now, this is my interpretation of it. I don't know if that's truth or not, but that's what it felt like to me in hearing the story of it.
Right.
Is that the only reason the mayor came around on it, because the mayor was well aware of this program and well aware of what these groups were trying to do for a significant amount of time before the city council person took it up. And then the city council person took it up, added numbers to the group, and then the mayor responds to it. I don't know how else to read that other than the mayor said, that's a voting block that I need to make sure I please.
It's very possible, yeah.
And so that's the strength, that's the power of a city councilor. That's not a direct power job. It's a soft power, not a soft power, but it's like an indirect, like it's a dance and beer board. So I'm not trying to downplay the importance of the position. I'm trying to understand what it is. And it seems to me that most of it is rubber stamping whatever the mayor says. And even if you don't, the mayor's going to do it anyway. You get to do some budget conversations. You get to do some other stuff here and there. You get to sit on boards and committees that do other things under the mayor's purview. But for the most part, the job in and of itself isn't a lot of stuff. Like, there's not a lot of authority or strength in the job, even if you have a fairly unified city council, which we do. It just happens to be fairly unified behind the mayor, so it's easy to get things done. I'd like to see, just for conversation's sake, partially for content's sake for what we do, but just to actually see any sort of pushback, I would like to see a couple of these candidates make it through and it not be the 5 incumbents. Not that I don't like any of them personally, not that I think anybody needs to go, but I would like to see more conflict other than Amelia. Amelia's the only one that does anything, and she's further the other way. I'd like to see some conversations about how to do things differently instead of it just kind of being like, okay. I'd like to see some of that. Now, 1 or 2 of these right-wing city people get in, they're not going to change anything, but at least conversation gets had.
Yeah.
And I think there's value in that. And so, like, I would encourage people, if you're a city voter, to, pick your district for who you actually want, and then split the other 2. Do 2 that lean one way, 2 that lean the other way. I don't know. I think the idea of having some dissenting voices on the table, whether you agree with the dissent, doesn't, if the stupid system that the city election is, I think there's need to use that stupid system to make some dissent happen so that there is some conversation. That's what I'd like to see. I don't know. I might do a live stream. You want to do a live stream on the election night? You might be working.
I might be working.
I want to do a live stream on the election night. I don't know. I haven't done my predictions yet.
Can you do a vote by vote analysis?
I mean, we probably could.
Oh, one more or so.
If we could just get like 20 people to work for us and just go stand out at every polling place, we could do it. Be a long fucking day sitting out there at the polling place, but
doing exit polls.
Yeah, I mean, it's not there. You wouldn't be too busy to do it. It'd just be whether you get people to talk to you or not.
Right. In this day and age.
Yeah.
Who are you? Get away from me.
I mean, just handing out flyers for people to listen to the podcast would be worth it to me, but I think there'd be value in having, I don't know. Yeah, either Nick or Jim get through. It's not a preference. It's not a personal. I'm not saying people to vote for him. I think Kim Smith's worthless. No offense. I think she has nothing to offer other than she's not Roberto, but she has no issues with Roberto. Roberto's not doing anything wrong. Like, those are her words to me. It was like, no, I was like, is there something particular that Roberto did that, inspired you to stand up and run against him? No, I think he's done a really good job. Okay. And then I think the P thing, I think that's enough. So so I think Tommy's going to take, to do some predictions, I think Tommy's taking 1, I think Roberto's taking 2. I think those are my 2 locks. I think Seema will probably beat Nick. I think the closest race will be District 4, Clanaris and Ryder. And then I think McKenzie will keep 6 pretty solidly. I think McKenzie, Smith, and Roberto are locks. Those 3 are getting through. Those 3 are keeping their seats for sure. I think it's likely that Seema will keep her seat. And then I think it's I'm leaning towards Lauren, but I think Jim's the most likely to sneak in, only because it's citywide. He's sucked in his own districts, but only because it's citywide. I think there's enough. I think there are enough right-leaning voters that Jim might take a real run at that seat. Those are my predictions, people. I mean, honestly, my predictions are nothing changes. I think the 5 incumbents stay. My true, honest predictions.
Have you seen your numbers of early votings up compared to last?
No, they're not great.
Off-year city elections.
Nope, they're the same. I haven't seen the comparison because stupid Matt had a stupid baby. He's not giving me my intel because he's busy feeding and changing diapers and bullshit.
Making sure the kids stay alive.
Dumbass babies, all soft and smushy, and can't take care of themselves.
They'll breathe on their own.
I mean, you can throw them down a flight of stairs; they'll be fine.
That's right. You got soft heads.
They'll bounce and all sorts of shit. Nothing breaks yet. They don't break until 4.
They heal so much faster when they're that little.
Yeah. Just don't put that's the soft spot in the back of the head. That's where things get a little weird. But no, I haven't seen the comparisons. But I've seen numbers, but I haven't seen the comparison numbers. But they don't look. I mean, they're certainly not impressive for 100 or
not drastically different as people are getting out and putting their voice out.
For the 200,000 something people that are eligible to vote in the city of Knoxville,
right.
They're not impressive numbers.
But typically, a lot of people don't go early vote anyway. Apparently,
I mean, the majority votes on election day. Yes. So anyway, I don't know. Those are my predictions. My predictions are that I think Tommy will run away with 1. I think Roberto will run away with 2. I think Mackenzie will run away with 6. I think those will be significant margins. I think Jim and Lauren will be close, but I think Lauren keeps it. I think Nick and Sima will be fairly close, but I think Sima keeps it too. I don't think anything's changing. And I don't know. I mean, again, I don't like the fucking hit piece ads and stuff out there. The only one thing to me that I truly don't understand is how you can have the argument that we're not going to raise taxes, or that the right candidates are we're running because we're not going to raise taxes, the other ones will, and how those that quote will raise taxes, the current incumbents who haven't done it yet, so they have a track record of not, but how they can continue doing the services that they're adding and not. I don't know why a couple weeks ago it popped in my head. One of the last times I had Lauren on here, when she was railing on that stupid cap the tax thing. It was the ballot initiative they were trying to get out that was trying to make it a ballot item to raise city taxes. Do you not remember that whole thing?
I remember it was a big cap the tax thing.
Well, she was railing on about it, and I was like, okay, I get it, because I can't remember what it was, but she was answering the question she thought I asked, but not the question I asked. But as she was going through it, so the cap the tax was to not change taxes. And her response kept being, well, what are we going to cut? And it's like, well...
Can constituents vote to not raise taxes?
That was a question. There was questions on whether or not it was legal to make it a ballot item.
So who the hell's going to pick to raise their taxes?
Right. That's the point of it. That was the point of trying to make it a ballot item.
Yeah.
But
see, nobody wants us to raise taxes. You can't do it. Nobody wants it.
Right. But Lauren's response of, well, what are we going to cut? Because the argument that Lauren had, which is accurate, is that things get more expensive over time. We pay less for our city officers than some of the other municipalities of similar size around the region pay. We pay our teachers. Well, that's not applicable to them. Our firefighters make a percentage less than our neighboring firefighters make, this, that, and the other. And it's like, well, if we're going to raise their salaries and not cut other services, we have to raise taxes. But she's arguing that, you can't tell me I'm going to raise taxes. We haven't raised taxes yet. This idiot's out here running this thing about make it so that I can't raise taxes. Well, if you as a community, or if we put this on the ballot and you as a community vote to not let us raise taxes, what do you guys want us to cut? And it's like, well, by you saying what do you want to cut, that means you have to raise taxes. You're planning on raising taxes, whether you're vocally and publicly planning on it, or whether in the back of your head that you're going to have to, are two separate things. But if the need to cut services is the conversation you're having, because we can't keep up with the cost of the services if we don't raise taxes, then you're going to raise taxes. You're basically saying you're going to raise taxes, and that's fine. If the community wants those services and that's what the deal is, it's okay. But it's just a weird little spot that it took me like a month after I had the conversation for it to click in the back of my head. It's like, wait a minute. She was arguing against that because she wasn't going to raise taxes, but she was also talking about what services that they expect us to cut as a city by not raising taxes. It's like, well, if you're going to have to cut them without raising taxes, that means you're going to have to raise taxes to keep them. So she kind of admitted it, that there's going to be a requirement for it somewhere down the line. Now, whether that's within her next term or not, that's a separate story, but that's kind of the reality. The services cost more eventually, so we have to raise taxes to pay that off. But there's two ways to raise taxes. It's either raise taxes or raise tax base, which is why we're doing stadium projects, why we're allowing different build cycles and different, we're working on zoning to get more residency and shit like that. Or maybe there'll be a push for Metro. I haven't pulled Metro out of my ass in a fucking long ass time. All right. And since we said Metro, Sam's going to do the outro.
No, thank you.
Fuck.
Your turn. I did it last time.
Yeah, you did. I did the intro. I do every intro. Almost an agreement. Wait, I got too fast. I got ahead of myself. I'm so excited. Almost an agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Go to almostagreement.com. You can get all the available episodes there, as well as your favorite podcast providers. While you're at your podcast provider, please give a 5-star rating, review, whatever the best you can do with them. It helps other people see us, as well as liking, sharing, following us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make comments. Tell us how stupid we are, or how smart we are, or how somewhere in the middle is the reality of things at almostagreement.com/cityelections21. That's my cheat sheet for these city elections. Like I said, today was the last Saturday for early voting. We got about a half a week of early voting, and then the following week, November 2nd, is the general. If you're a city resident, that is your time to go vote. Go do so. Go to almostagreement.com/cityelections21 to get my cheat sheet and get to know the candidates a little bit better. We've done interviews with most of them. You can go back in the catalog for that, or get those off the website. The cheat sheet tells you where those are too. Ron McPherson this week, hunting weekend next weekend, among other things. So stay tuned. We will be doing more of these all the time. Thanks. Bye.